And welcome back to Fresh Outlook. I'm TWB. We're in the middle of a heated discussion about President Obama's fifth State of the Union address. Let's throw to a quick piece which basically alludes to all the people that Obama specifically pointed out in the audience in the chamber. Take a look.
President Barack Obama had some special guests in the House last night. He pointed out to everyday heroes who shone a light on what it really means to be Americans. Menchu Sanchez, a New York City nurse, worked tirelessly through Hurricane Sandy to care for 20 newborns. She paid little attention to her own house or family through the ordeal.
We should follow their example. We should follow the example of a New York City nurse named Menchu Sanchez. When Hurricane Sandy plunged her hospital into darkness, she wasn't thinking about how her own home was faring. Her mind was on the 20 precious newborns in her care and the rescue plan she devised that kept them all safe.
Obama spoke passionately about Desaline Victor, a 102-year-old woman who waited 6 hours in line to vote in Miami.
We should follow the example of a North Miami woman named Desaline Victor. When Desaline arrived at her polling place, she was told the wait to vote might be 6 hours. And as time ticked by, her concern was not with her tired body or aching feet, but whether folks like her would get to have their say. And hour after hour, a throng of people stayed in line to support her, because Desaline is 102 years old.
Another police officer, Brian Murphy, rushed to the scene of Wisconsin's tragic Sikh temple shooting and was shot 12 times.
We should follow the example of a police officer named Brian Murphy. When a gunman opened fire on a Sikh temple in Wisconsin, Brian was the first to arrive, and he did not consider his own safety. He fought back until help arrived and ordered his fellow officers to protect the safety of the fellow Americans worshiping inside, even as he lay bleeding from 12 bullet wounds. And when asked how he did that, Brian said, "That's just the way we're made."
Also in the crowd was the family of Hadia Pendleton, who died from a stray bullet a week after performing at the inauguration parade.
Obviously very powerful, all those references in the crowd, very effective. We do have a graphic of just some of Obama's proposals which were mentioned in the speech. We wanted to talk a little bit about that. Something for me, I thought his stance on immigration, I don't think that's the graphic, but anyway, his stance on immigration was pretty powerful. It garnered a standing ovation that we need to work on this now. This is a priority. So that was.
Well, he's been basically saying the same thing, not in a negative way. He's been basically presenting his position since 2008 very clearly about immigration.
Sorry, there's those proposals I was talking about. We just to, not to interrupt you.
No,
but,
no, of course.
Gun reforms. We talked about federal minimum wage, troops returning by 2014, background checks. Climate change, which we talked about. He did talk about cyber attacks. Do want to discuss just for a moment to make sure we have time the Republican reaction and that Marco Rubio speech that everyone is talking about. He's the best guy. I know he's the face of the party they're hoping for 2016. But come on, he's got to work on his public speaking skills. He also needs to learn how to hydrate. But to his defense, he did just complete a speech in Spanish, he said, for 18 minutes, and apparently there was really no time in between. So I think they need to work on that, because they didn't plan well enough. He ended up looking like a fool. What do you think?
Well, he's a delight for me as a psychologist, because I think he looks like he should have a winning personality. He looks like he can project himself very well, except for one thing. He doesn't come across as a guy who projects a really good message. He doesn't seem believable when he speaks.
He was nervous.
He may look good,
but he was shaking.
But he doesn't. He just doesn't project the message. He doesn't seem to be going, as I said before, where the country's going. And he takes positions. For example, as a psychologist, he voted against mental health parity. Well, now he's saying he's for mental health.
Right. He's flip-flopping.
But now he's for mental health only because he's really not for gun control. So he's taking positions that are not really believable.
Maybe he needs to work on his own mental health.
Maybe he needs a psychologist.
He's not making any sense.
He needs a clinical psychologist.
Right. No, I do think, to me, it just seemed like he's reading a prompter and he doesn't it doesn't sound like he's believing in what he's saying.
Exactly.
He's really, this is
It
what
looked like he was,
he's reading a speech, blah, 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 blah.
It looked like he was making
and maybe that takes time to develop.
sales pitch.
So, you know, he needs to develop that if he's the face.
Well, what I think it concerns me most is this sort of rote repetition of the party line over and over again, that the only thing that matters in the world is reducing deficits. Well, the reality is everybody who's an economist who knows what they're talking about recognizes that when you go through a massive depression, you're going to run deficits because that's the way the economy gets righted.
But Obama's to blame. He's the one.
And the idea that you're going to solve problems by cutting that, when in fact what you're going to do is just exacerbate the gap between the rich and the poor, cut off the economic recovery. I mean, it's a very frightening and destructive kind of political philosophy to hold, and I don't understand how Republican leaders can consistently get away with that.
Right, it's not realistic.
I mean, why not just stand up for the right role for government? If that's the Republican message, what is the role for government? That's a legitimate discussion that Republicans can have. And maybe we should have a smaller, more efficient, more effective government. But instead of going down that road, they're going out against women, against gays, against immigration. They're taking positions where the message, I agree, it doesn't come across. It looks like it's scripted and it's just one for
well, that's
one
why
way.
Mitt Romney just,
and it sounds very reactionary, more than
nosedive.
more than proactive. But can I add one more thing?
No, of course you can.
This last speech and the previous speech, Bobby Jindal and Mark Rubio, kind of tells us how the Republican Party is really struggling to find a new presentation, a new face, because especially after Obama, President Obama, they want to look younger. They want to look like they're embracing people of color.
Well, they were hoping Rubio was that guy, but this
exactly.
didn't help.
They tried with Jindal also, but somehow, as Dr. is saying, unless you engage your content, just because you put some makeup, is not going to change the content.
Correct.
And they got to dig deeper and then deal with their content, how to engage 21st century, how to engage youth.
It is a lot about the presentation.
He's not even for the DREAM Act. I mean, how could somebody like this not be for the DREAM Act?
Cuban American,
I mean, I don't get that.
I think the other piece is to look at the fact that I think it's in the year 2042, the U.S. ceases being a Caucasian majority country.
Right.
And you know, there's a certain kind of unfortunate desire within the Republican Party just to sort of throw up anybody who's not Caucasian as a way of trying to say we're on top of this. I remember 2 or 3 years ago when the healthcare debate was really engaged, sitting with a group of black ministers talking about the opposition to healthcare, and you know, I remember several of them after talking about the struggles that families run into with this stuff, saying, you know, what it looks like to us in terms of opposition to this is a lot of white people don't want black people to have health care. I mean, there's a fundamental disconnect in terms of what this means.
Real quickly, we have to go to break. I just take 15 seconds. What didn't we get to? What didn't he get to, rather, in the speech? Real quickly,
I
5
personally
seconds.
wish he engaged the investment in the arts and education, especially arts, because arts always gets the lowest amount of investment.
So you should have mentioned that.
Definitely.
Fletcher, what didn't he mention in the State of the Union?
Making the Safe Water Drinking Act apply to hydrofracking, to the exploration for and drilling for natural gas.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, real quickly?
Maybe accentuate education a little bit more.
Okay, got it. For me, campaign finance reform. I thought that should.
Yes.
So, Dr. Rossi, are you leaving us?
No,
Are you staying?
No, I'm staying.
Someone's leaving us.
Nobody
Rossi,
wants to leave. Why would you want to leave Fresh Outlook?
The voices in my head are saying say goodbye, but I don't know who's leaving. So
that's fine.
I want to thank you for being here, because we're going to the next segment.
Very
but
good.
we won't have you, unfortunately. It wasn't my decision. But when
Right.
we come back, we're digging into the controversial Keystone Pipeline debate, no pun intended. Stay with us. You're watching Fresh Outlook.